Suddenly, they heard a loud siren. The noise grew closer, followed by the sound of cars. Before they could make sense of what was happening, police officers turned into their small compound. They didn't knock, they didn't ask questions. They barged into the house, grabbed his mother, and dragged her outside. Emmanuel was a young teenager and the only child of his family. He had always been different from the other boys in a small town. While his peers spent their days running through the dusty streets, kicking an old football, or chasing kites that danced in the wind, Emmanuel preferred the quiet and interesting world of books. He did not ignore their games out of pride or indifference. He simply found greater joy in learning and losing himself in the pages of stories he read and the knowledge he gained from them. Emmanuel's mother, Mrs. Elo, had seen this difference in him from the start. Life had not been easy for her. She was a widow with nothing to her name except the sachet water she hawked every day under the hot sun. From morning till night, she walked through the market and along the streets, calling out to customers, her feet aching from the long hours. But no matter how hard things got, she never lost sight of the one dream that kept her going, that Emmanuel would become a doctor. Not just any doctor, but the first in their family, the one who would change their story and bring an end to poverty that had held them down for so long. She held onto this dream with everything in her, believing that if Emmanuel succeeded, their suffering would finally have meaning. Life continued. It had never been easy for them. Mrs. Elo had worked herself to the bone, selling whatever she could just to make ends meet. Some days it was food, and other days it was drinks she carried in a worn-out cooler. She never stayed in one place for too long, always moving from street to street, sometimes even traveling to distant villages just to sell her goods. Hunger was a familiar visitor in their home, but she did everything to shield Emmanuel from it. Many times, she would skip meals, drinking only water to fill her stomach, just to make sure her son had something to eat. The people in their town admired her strength. They called her a tireless woman, a mother who refused to give up. They saw how she carried her struggles with dignity, never complaining, never breaking. Emmanuel, even as young as he was, understood the weight of her sacrifices. He watched her leave home early and return late. Her feet sore from walking, her back aching from carrying heavy loads. And in his heart, he made a silent promise. One day, he would change her story. He would take her out of this life of hardship and give her the comfort she had never known. Despite their struggles, Mrs. Elo made sure he went to school. It wasn't the best in the village, but it was a good school, one that had the potential to shape his future. And for her, that was enough. She believed that as long as he had an education, as long as he stayed focused, there was hope. And hope was the only thing that kept her going. Emmanuel made sure to always bring back good results, consistently topping his class as one of the best senior students. At just 19, he had already won several awards in school, proving himself to be one of the brightest minds among his peers. Each time he came home with a certificate or a prize, his mother's face would light up with pride. It was a reminder that her hard work and sacrifices were not in vain, that every drop of sweat, every skipped meal, and every long day under the sun had been worth it. One day, something unexpected happened. One of the authorities of the biggest universities in the city visited their school, searching for talented and intelligent students. It was a prestigious institution, the kind of university Emmanuel had never dared to dream of attending. The fees alone were more than his mother could ever afford, and the school itself was known to be a place for the rich and privileged. The university representatives carefully went through the files of the top students, selecting those who had consistently performed well. Soon after, an assembly was called, and all the best students, including Emmanuel, were asked to gather. The entire hall buzzed with excitement and curiosity as the visitors stood before them, making announcements that would change many lives. They revealed that the university was offering a golden opportunity, a competition, a test that would determine the 5 most outstanding students. The winners will be awarded a full scholarship to study at the prestigious university after graduation. The news sent a wave of excitement through the crowd, but for Emmanuel, it was more than just excitement. It was hope, a chance to make his mother's sacrifices count, a chance to finally change their lives forever. Emmanuel was amazed. This was the kind of opportunity that only came once in a lifetime, and he knew he couldn't afford to miss it. He was in his final year, just 2 months away from graduation, and if he could secure this scholarship, it would change his life forever. He could finally study medicine, the dream his mother had always wanted for him, the dream that had kept her going through all the struggles. But there was one problem. The test was sudden. He hadn't prepared for it, and he had no idea what kind of questions would come out. Still, he couldn't let fear hold him back. He had come too far to let this slip through his fingers. While some students hesitated, shaking their heads and backing out because they felt unprepared, Emmanuel made up his mind to try. In the end, only 20 students remained to take the test. The school authorities led them to a small old hall at the back of the school, where the test would take place. The room smelled of dust and old books. The wooden desk, scratched and worn from years of use. Emmanuel's heart pounded as he took his seat. His hands felt slightly sweaty, and for a moment, doubt crept into his mind, but he quickly pushed it away. He closed his eyes, whispered a short prayer, and took a deep breath. When the test began, he focused all his energy on answering the questions. He read carefully, thought deeply, and ensured he did his best. Every moment counted. When they were finally done, their papers were collected and they were told to wait outside for 30 minutes while the results were being marked. Emmanuel's stomach tightened with nerves. 30 minutes felt like a lifetime. He could only hope that his best was enough. When the marking was done, all the students were called to gather around as the results were about to be announced. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone held their breath, waiting to hear the names of the 5 students who had passed. Emmanuel's heart pounded in his chest as the names were called one by one. Then, suddenly, he heard his name. For a moment, everything around him faded. His mind went completely blank as he struggled to process what he had just heard. Had they called his name? Had he made it? When reality finally sank in, joy burst through him like a flood. He let out a loud cheer, jumping and clapping his hands, unable to contain his excitement. His classmates, who had always admired his dedication, surrounded him with hugs and pats on his back, congratulating him with wide smiles. Out of the 20 students who had taken the test, only 5 had been selected, and he was one of them. It was unbelievable. This was the moment he had dreamed of, the moment that would change his life forever. The thought of his mother filled his mind. She would be overjoyed when she heard the news. All her sacrifices, all her sleepless nights, and all her years of struggle had not been in vain. Tears welled up in his eyes as he silently thanked God for this opportunity. He also thanked his mother in his heart because, without her love, her prayers, and her endless hard work, he wouldn't have made it this far. Now, his dream was within reach. He was going to the university. He was going to become a doctor. And most importantly, he was going to make his mother proud. The prestigious scholarship was more than just an opportunity. It was a life-changing miracle. It covered everything: tuition, accommodation, study materials, and even a guaranteed high-paying job after graduation. It wasn't just about getting an education. It was a direct pathway to success. With this scholarship, Emmanuel wouldn't have to worry about school fees, struggling for survival, or watching his mother suffer anymore. This was his golden ticket to a better life. Not just for himself, but for his mother as well. There was only one condition. Before accepting the scholarship, he had to sign a legal document stating that no member of his family had a criminal record or was involved in any police case. It seemed like a simple requirement, one that wouldn't be a problem at all. His mother was an honest woman who had spent her entire life working hard to survive. She had never committed any crime or been in trouble with the law. As for other relatives, Emmanuel didn't have any. It had always been just him and his mother. With no reason to worry, he prepared to sign the document, fully believing that nothing could stand in the way of his dreams now. Emmanuel rushed home after school, his heart pounding with excitement. He couldn't wait to tell his mother the news, to see the joy on her face when she realized that all her struggles had not been in vain. He imagined her reaction, the way she would clap her hands, laugh, and maybe even cry. This was the moment they had both been waiting for. When he got home, his mother hadn't returned from hawking yet, but he didn't mind waiting. He wanted everything to be perfect when she arrived. Knowing how tired she would be, he went straight to the small kitchen and made a simple porridge for her. He also boiled water for her bath, wanting her to come home to warmth and comfort. When she finally returned, she was surprised to see that dinner was already made. The exhaustion on her face softened as Emmanuel handed her the warm water to bathe. After she was done, he served her the porridge, watching as she ate with a small, grateful smile. But soon, she noticed his excitement and knew something was different. "What is the special occasion?" she asked curiously. That was the moment Emmanuel had been waiting for. With a wide grin, he told her everything: the scholarship, the test, how he was among the 5 students chosen. The moment the words left his mouth, his mother froze. Then she dropped her spoon, lay flat on the floor, and burst into tears. She cried and prayed at the same time, thanking God over and over again. She could hardly believe it. Her son, the boy she had raised with so much struggle, was going to the city to study at one of the most prestigious universities. It felt like a dream. The news spread quickly. By the next day, everyone in the village knew, and they were all happy for her. They knew how hard she had worked, how much she had sacrificed, and they agreed she truly deserved this joy. Women hugged her in the market, men congratulated her, and some people even offered small gifts to celebrate Emmanuel's success. But Mrs. Elo didn't stop there. Even with the scholarship covering everything, she wanted to send Emmanuel up properly. For the next 2 months, she worked harder than ever, taking extra jobs, cleaning people's houses, washing their clothes, anything she could find. She saved every penny, determined to buy him everything he needed before he left for the university. This was her greatest joy, and she would do everything to make sure her son didn't lack anything. Emmanuel had finally finished secondary school, and the long-awaited moment had come. He received an official letter from the university, informing him that in 2 days, a car will be sent to the village to pick him up. It was happening. His journey to the city, to a better future, was just around the corner. His mother was overjoyed. The excitement was too much for her to focus on anything else, so she decided not to go to work for those 2 days. Instead, she spent the time preparing, making sure Emmanuel had everything he needed. Emmanuel too was busy. He went to the market together with his mother to buy a few things for his trip and his stay at the university. When they got back home, she sat down and carefully packed his bags, folding his clothes neatly and arranging all the little things he would need. Meanwhile, Emmanuel gathered his paperwork, making sure all his documents were in order. They were both lost in their preparations, excited for what was to come, when suddenly they heard a loud siren. The noise grew closer, followed by the sound of cars. Before they could make sense of what was happening, police officers stormed into their small compound. They didn't knock. They didn't ask questions. They barged into the house, grabbed his mother, and dragged her outside. Everything happened so fast. One moment they were packing for a bright future, the next his mother was being pulled away like a criminal. Emmanuel's heart pounded in his chest. What is going on? Why are you taking my mother? He cried, running after them. His mother, just as confused, screamed for help, struggling against their grip. The villagers, hearing the commotion, rushed out of their houses. But instead of helping, they only watched, whispering among themselves. Some looked shocked, others simply curious. Not one person stepped forward to stop the injustice happening before them. Please, tell me what she did, Emmanuel begged, his voice breaking. But the officers ignored him. They cuffed his mother's hand and shoved her into the police car like she was some dangerous criminal. No, no, leave my mother alone, Emmanuel shouted, tears running down his face. He ran after the car, screaming her name, his feet hitting the dusty ground as he chased after it with everything in him. But the car sped off, disappearing down the road. And just like that, in the blink of an eye, his world shattered. At the police station, Mrs. Ella pleaded with the police officer, claiming she had done nothing wrong. When she was told about her offense, she begged them to let her go, but they did not answer her. As for Emmanuel, he didn't waste time arguing with the villagers or listening to their gossips. He ignored their murmurs and whispers, his mind set on only one thing: getting to his mother. Without thinking twice, he ran to the main road and stopped a cab. The driver barely had time to stop before Emmanuel jumped in, breathless and desperate. "Take me to the police station," he said, his voice shaking. The ride felt like the longest of his life. His mind raced with thoughts he couldn't control. Fear clawed at his chest, but he refused to believe it. His mother, a criminal? It didn't make sense. She was the most honest woman he knew. She had spent her whole life working hard, struggling just to make ends meet. What crime could she have possibly committed? When he arrived at the station, his legs felt weak, but he forced himself inside. The cold, intimidating air of the police station sent chills down his spine, but he didn't let it stop him. He approached the front desk, his voice firm but desperate. "I want to see my mother," he said. The police officer asked for his mother's name, and Emmanuel told him. One of the officers looked up from his paperwork and studied him for a moment before nodding. "Wait here," he said. Minutes later, the officer returned and led Emmanuel to a small waiting area. Emmanuel couldn't sit. His heart pounded too fast, his hands trembling slightly as he struggled to stay calm. Then, finally, the officer spoke. "You are here about Mrs. Elo, right?" Emmanuel nodded quickly. "Yes, she is my mother." "Why did you take her? What did she do?" The officer leaned forward, resting his arms on the desk. His expression was unreadable, but his next words hit Emmanuel like a gunshot. "A man came to the station one night with a complaint," he explained. "He said that 20 years ago, long before you were even born, a woman named Elo stole money from him. He claimed your mother used to work for him and that, despite always paying a salary on time, she still betrayed him." Emmanuel was shocked. "That's a lie. My mother would never." The officer raised a hand, silencing him. According to the man, the amount she stole was huge. It affected his business badly, and when he tried to find her, she had disappeared. He searched for years, but she was nowhere to be found. The case was eventually buried until now. Emmanuel felt his head spinning. None of this made sense. His mother? A thief? Disappearing? That wasn't possible. The officer continued. The businessman claimed that recently, while passing through this village, he saw a woman hawking water by the roadside. He recognized her immediately. He wasn't sure at first, so he sent one of his guards to follow her, track her movements, and confirm her identity. Once he was sure, he reopened the case and demanded justice. Emmanuel shook his head in disbelief. His mother had lived in the same village for as long as he could remember. She never hid from anyone, never acted like someone running from the past. If the accusation was true, why had she stayed in one place all these years? Why hadn't anyone come for her before now? The officer leaned back. If she's convicted, she will spend years behind bars.